Soon after birth, an infant's microbiome in the intestinal tract starts to develop. There's new research that shows that lactobacillus given during infancy can have a profound impact on many infant intestinal illnesses. So let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Dr. David. So probiotics, microbiome, the good bacteria that are supposed to be in our intestinal tract was one of the very first holistic natural concepts that I learned about early on in my career. Now everybody seems to know about it, which is a good thing. We're making progress. But what I learned first about how replacement for when people take antibiotics, how it can be helpful for older people with intestinal symptoms. Then I started to measure the microbiome and being able to do stool testing to determine what was needed. But we're going to be talking about that today and why that's so important. We're going to be talking about how the microbiome itself, so the microbiome, microbiota, flora, you'll hear those terms used pretty interchangeably, but how they can be set and influenced. And we're also going to talk about some new research that shows a particular strain of lactobacilli can treat infant intestinal illnesses. Okay, so again, let's first talk about what the microbiome is. Now, I've been alluding to the intestinal microbiome, but in fact, we have microbiome in many places of our body, and that really just represents the non-human cells that are living in us or on us. So in our oral cavity, we have good bacteria that's there as well. On our skin, we have bacteria. Staph is on our skin. People have staph infections all the time. Oh my God, Staph aureus is terrible. No. Under your skin can get infected, certain strains can, but we all have staph on our bodies. It's just a typical normal thing. Intestinal tract, as we're talking about in this particular video, but it's also in the vaginal canal. And in fact, that's a very important place to start this conversation because of how it impacts a baby. Okay. Now, in terms of the gut microbiome itself, why it's so important. Well, first of all, it helps us with our nutrients, our mineral absorption in the first place when we consume it. It helps body make enzymes, vitamins and amino acids, short chain fatty acids as well, but a lot of B vitamins, thiamine, biotin, folate, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, which is vitamin B5. All of them, while we can take it as supplements found in food, they are made by the microbiome. And those are what are called the water-soluble vitamins. Not all of water-soluble vitamins are there. We're not talking about C. But also there's vitamin K, essential for helping the blood clot. When babies are born, they have no vitamin K in their system once the cord's been cut. And actually not much gets through then anyways. The reason why vitamin K is given as a supplement, as an injection, or as I've talked about before by oral, is because when they first start off, they don't have vitamin K, so they're compromised in their ability to be able to clot and could potentially lead to rare, but something that happens, a newborn hemorrhagic disease. Now, in addition to that, the probiotics, the good flora of our gut, they ferment byproducts that are called the fermentation byproducts, acetate, propionate, butyrate, and they are all important for maintaining good intestinal health, but they also provide energy sources for the intestinal lining cells. In addition, the microbiome, the bacteria, help to maintain the integrity of the intestinal lining, the barrier. We talk about the gut blood barrier, which stops the ability for for everything to enter into our bloodstream, is the plumpness, the integrity of the cells that make up that single lining that is lining our course, and those are very important for that. It actually provides the immunomodulation. So we've talked about how there are certain things, vitamin D, zinc being examples of things that modulate the immune system. They don't necessarily make it too strong or too weak, but to help maintain that balance between having some inflammation, but not enough, but not too much inflammation. Having our bodies be able to be in that balance sense. But it also does protect against certain pathogens of the intestines. Okay, now, in terms of how the microbiome first is established, going through the birth canal. When we are born, if we are born by C-section, we miss out on that first megadose. Now, right at the beginning of birth, we start to establish the microbiome. And so we want to have the good bacteria there from the very beginning. Okay. And so one of the things that I recommend, especially if a baby is born via C-section, is something called vaginal seeding. It may sound gross to start off with, but really it's no different than passing through a birth canal in the first place. But if a C-section baby, if the mother were to take her vaginal juices and feed it to the baby, those good bacteria are then swallowed and then goes down into the birth canal. Down into the GI tract, I meant to say. And so that's something several times a day in that situation that for the first week or so, I encourage mothers to do this vaginal seeding to get the good bacteria there. Okay. Now, in terms of this new research, which I found was rather compelling. So this was done in 2 different children's hospitals in Russia. And there were a total of 90 babies that were there, and they were all between 1 and 4 months of age. And they had either colic, constipation, diarrhea, or reflux, the regurgitation. And they were randomized, and they were randomized between a placebo group and the treatment group. And this particular form of lactobacillus, of flora, lactobacillus reuteri, there were drops. There's a particular nomenclature, a particular name of this, which is the NCIMB, that's the categorization, 30351. We'll get back to that in just a minute as to why that particular information is needed. And what they did is they took 60 of the babies and they gave him 200 million colony-forming units, or 2,000 bacteria, which there, but obviously they grow, so that's why they call them colony-fermenting units. And then there were 30 that received the placebo. And they were treated for 25 days straight. So within these, both treatment also had an equal number of babies who had constipation or diarrhea. 30 were in each group. So they really tried to get them to equal, but then they had more babies that they wanted to treat to see how it does. So as far as infants with colic who were given this particular lactobacillus reuteri for the 25 days, there was a significant reduction in the number of episodes of colic, where they had to record that every day. For those who don't know, colic is it's an intestinal upset. Often they will cry. They seem uncomfortable. You usually can't find another reason. For some reason, it often happens more in the evening hours. It's usually something that babies do eventually outgrow. So what they found is that it reduced, so those who received it, it reduced not just the number of colic episodes, the number of crying cases, and the mean duration of the crying. So it's one thing if a baby of yours is crying for 2 minutes. It's another thing if they're crying for 2 hours. Most of us can handle 2 minutes, 2 hours. Sometimes that could be enough to make us lose our mind. Okay. And also, those babies who were given it had a significant reduction in the reflux, in the regurgitation. Now, they did often show a significant reduction in the number of poops in the babies who were constipated. Now, they did find for those babies who were experiencing diarrhea, they did find less diarrhea in the ones who were treated, but it didn't reach the level of statistical significance, which is, if you know, a p-value of less than 0.01, that indicates that it's statistically significant, not just related to chance. Okay. So now, in terms of this particular lactobacillus reuteri, what they found is that when the babies were taking it, they were also looking at the levels of what else is growing there besides that particular one. So they did before versus after testing of the actual poop to see. And they found that there was a positive influence in the proportions of the good bacteria that are supposed to be there. So just the presence of the lactobacilli seemed to promote the growth of the other good guys. That's pretty cool. Also, it lowered the growth of pathogenic bacteria, those that are not supposed to be in the first place, as well as what are called commensal. They're imbalanced bacteria. They're not supposed to be there. They're kind of like weeds in the garden, but not poison ivy, but they're really not helpful. So you want to not, it's better to have that than pathological bacteria. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to have a bacteria that's just imbalanced, not supposed to be there either. Okay. They also showed a significant reduction in one of the pathological bacteria called Clostridia. And you may have heard of Clostridia, as that's what C. diff is. There's other Clostridias, botulism, tetanus are also Clostridia. But but overall, there can be different pathological Clostridia, and the Lactobacillus reuteri lowered it. Okay. Also, another great thing about it, there were no adverse effects noted from taking this treatment. Okay. So what's my take? So first of all, it's important to try to prevent GI symptoms. Of course, we're talking about treating. Wonderful, better than not having a treatment at all. But of course, we want to prevent that. What are the 2 best ways we can accomplish that? Passing through the birth canal or vaginal seeding, and breastfeeding. Okay, breastfeeding has what are called human milk oligosaccharides. These are carbohydrates. They don't do anything for us. They feed the good bacteria. Okay, HMO. That's a different kind of HMO than the insurance company, but HMO, human oligosaccharides. Now, so that we can accept that, but of course, now this particular lactobacillus reuteri, again, this 30351 nomenclature. I have not tried this product in my patients so far. I am, just to be clear, I'm reporting this. I'm not endorsing the product, but I did put a link in the show description. So if you wanted to see what the product was, it's there. Okay. And and of course, if your kid if your baby's having these types of symptoms, in the risk versus benefit category of life, while I think more research needs to come out, I think it's very appropriate for something to try. It seems very safe, seems to be effective. I would question maybe whether this is the type of probiotic that maybe we would want to be giving babies, whether there was a family history of those other diseases, or maybe just to prevent it. And it's not a high amount. 200 million sounds like a lot. A healthy adult actually has over 100 trillion good bacteria. So we're talking about 200 million bacteria. So quite a big difference there. So maybe maybe there'll be more research that will show maybe this can be a good supplement to be doing to prevent those types of things. All right. But, as somebody who has used probiotics for so many different things, for so many reasons, I was excited to see that there was something that was being tested in newborn babies, in those first couple months of life, that seems to be making a difference. So now you know more about our microbiome. Please share this information with others and have a great day.